Hello, this is HD Chambers. I'm Superintendent of Schools for Alief ISD, and I want to welcome you to my weekly YouTube address. The intent today is to share with you an update and clarifications on how we plan to open school and to build upon many of the conversations that I've tried to have with the community and our staff and our parents over the last couple of months. As you can see on the screen, we have a guest, and it's not, I shouldn't even refer to her as a guest. She's not a guest. That's the wrong term. It's our board president, Miss Ann Williams. And obviously, going through what we've gone through since March, this has been a joint team of 8, the 7 trustees, myself, and then obviously our staff. But I wanted to have Miss Williams speak so that the community and parents and students and staff members can hear from her. I know you hear from her during board meetings, once, twice a month, but this is an opportunity for just to have a conversation about Alief, what we're doing, what we're thinking, why we're doing what we're doing, why we're thinking what we're thinking, and then hopefully that would be helpful to everyone. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Ms. Williams, and thank you for joining me. And as always, I appreciate your leadership and your going on 13 years of service to the Alief community as an elected trustee on the Alief ISD board. So thank you, Ms. Williams.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chambers, for allowing me this opportunity to join you today on this week's message. You are frequently asking the board to take an opportunity to participate with you on these particular calls, and most of the time we're kind of shunning it, but not because we are shunning the public. But I just wanted to share that while we do have a retired educator on our board, and we do have a single parent who is very dedicated to taking care of her children, we other board members are considered essential workers. So as that, we are in the fields every day, and I just want to take a quick moment to shout out to the trustees for Alief ISD, because without their support and their feedback, a lot of the things that we are moving forward in just cannot happen. I thought today that it was important to understand that this board is very much committed to the community. They are very much committed to understanding what it takes to educate our children. But I just want to applaud them for not just being committed to the district, but also being committed to the roles that they play as essential workers in their fields. So I want to applaud them for that. One of the things I wanted to bring out today was the fact that I am one of 4 board members who are educators. And some people typically get afraid of that. They're like, oh my God, what's going on? But I wanted the public to understand that we all bring a different mix to our district. We bring a different mixture of thinking. We know that people are sending you, Mr. Chambers, tons of messages, emails, and notifications. I wanted our community to understand that we are receiving your emails. We're receiving them. We are being very thoughtful in how we communicate them, and making sure that whatever questions that need to be answered, that they're going to the appropriate people. So we are, very conscious about this trying time. I kind of look at what's going on right now as a lot of chatter about reopening. And I don't say it in a derogatory way in chatter. It's just the fact that from the moment you rise up in the morning to the time that you're going to bed, we are looking constantly at emails, notifications, TEA, trying to sort through what those messages mean. And when I say we, of course, I'm speaking on behalf of trustees, because I know that school administrators are working in their groups and trying to assess what they're going to do at the campus levels. I know the teachers groups are trying to assess what's best for teachers and all of the employees. So it's a great effort that's going on. I know that parents are very frustrated. I know that, we don't talk about it often, Mr. Chambers, but students are frustrated too, especially those who begin this journey of going to school. I'm pretty sure, I work in the middle school in another district, and I'm often thinking about my middle school students and what their thoughts are. I know how happy they are to go into the doors, and arrive to school each day. So I can only imagine how the anxiety that they're feeling when they are hearing we're starting school or we're going virtual and those things like that. So I want the public to understand that we are not making decisions in a vacuum at all. Those decisions are are being made very thoughtfully and strategically. Um, I know that we've been communicating at regional levels. I'm fortunate to be a member of a family of educators. So when I think about ALEAF, I also think about at least 4 or 5 other districts in the Houston area and what we're all doing to make sure that education happen. At the end of the day, I think, Mr. Chambers, you would agree, we grew up in a society that believed that the only way to successful living or a peaceable life is through education. So we know how greatly important it is for us to be able to have that opportunity for our students. I'm looking at the different organizations that I'm affiliated with. As a board member trustee, I also belong to Texas Caucus of Black School Board Members. We belong to Gulf Coast Area Association of School Boards. So there are different organizations, and I would like the public to understand that at this moment, trustees are deeply involved in this conversation with the governor. Initially, it was we were kind of shut out and not heard from. So here recently, we put forth some Zoom meetings and initiatives to speak out and to say that we're looking for local control. And I was excited to see that the governor started announcing this thing about local control. But I want to be very, very clear with the public what local control may mean to him is not the same thing what a trustee would look for local control. So we are working tirelessly with our superintendents in the area to make sure that what we say to the public is actually going to happen. The worst thing that you can have is a bait and switch opportunity. So, we are really working diligently. Mr. Chambers, I wanted to state, I reflected today on when you were being interviewed to become the superintendent of ALEAF. And I remember asking you this question, trying to just, I guess get into your head, but it was about understanding the Maslow's theory of hierarchy, and I asked you the question about, how would you connect that theory to our staff and our teachers? You assured me that you would always be conscious about what their needs were. And the reason why that is so important to me, because I had an educator, made it very, very clear to me, if a teacher is not happy and if they do not feel safe on their campus, it's going to be impossible to educate students, and ultimately those kids are going to be impacted. So while we are fighting for this reopening, I want to say that there are 2 things, and hopefully in our conversation, we'll begin to address that. And if not here, as the weeks come or as the days come, we'll put it that way. And the 2 things that are greatly, greatly important to me, one is this notion that yes, we may open virtually, but the goal is for us to eventually open up the doors so that our students could come back to our campus. I totally look forward to that, but in my conscious, I can't say that unless I know for a fact our numbers are down. And we know that the COVID numbers, especially in our zip code, it's just too high. And personally, I would never want to risk the life of a child, not any one of our students, when something happens to one of our students, our small community feels the impact of that. Not only that, I am very conscious of our staff members, especially those who are vulnerable to to the virus. So I want the public to understand that that's the number one priority right now. But as an educator, the other side of the that I look at is the fact that once we get them into the classroom, whether we do it safely or not, there are so many other needs beyond getting them to the door, front door. Once we get them to the front door, there's students who need to be fed, there's social emotional needs that need to be addressed. And at the end of the day, the highest thing for me is high dosage of curriculum or rigor, because our students have fallen behind. And we want and everything that we can to get them there. I was on a call last week, and something came to my attention was, while we're talking about reopening, on the heels of that, STAR test is not off the table. It was off the table last year, but STAR testing is not off the table this coming year. So there's lots of conversation. Once we hurdle or go through the hurdle of reopening, then we're going to have to look at some of the real hard things that is going to directly impact our students. So thank you for this opportunity to just vent for a moment to the community and to share. Those are the thoughts right now from a trustee point of view. We want the local control to be able to open our schools the way that our community is suggesting that we do. We want that opportunity, but we also want to make sure that it is safe. And what's not mentioned, no one's really talking about, funding is going to be a huge issue. And this funding is based upon whether or not these students' bodies are in a seat. And I know I talked to one of my state reps, and he said he didn't want to associate it or to say it's really about money. But somewhere on the back end of it, if you don't have enough students attending, it's going to impact your ability to staff well in the coming years. So thank you for this opportunity to share, and I'm gonna ask that you jump in and try to give some clarification to some of the things that I'm concerned as a trustee.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. For those that watch this weekly video or have watched, I've watched it consistently, you know that, at least I hope you know that I've attempted to create a clear line of communication with decisions that are being made at the district level. And as Ms. Williams mentioned, because things are moving so fast and so quickly, and we don't have the luxury of assembling a board meeting every day to address all these issues. As a leader of this district, I am blessed to have a board that I can communicate with, and I do. I communicate with them all the time, asking opinions and just giving them a heads up. This is what I'm thinking. This is what's on my mind. If I'm steering off track, let me know. So as I get into the points of clarification and updates, I want everyone to be fully aware that these decisions, as Ann said, are not being made in a vacuum. And I'm responsible for them. The board has to own them because they have to answer to the community, just like I do, and in some cases more so than I do. But the community, I just want everyone to know this is a truly a team effort in trying to do the right thing by our students, both on the health and safety side and our staff, as well as the academic side. So a couple of clarifications or updates from previous that I hope that you guys find helpful. So I've received some emails, and I'm just going to respond in general to this topic of email, and Ms. Williams kind of alluded to it. And last week, as many of you know, I talked about the length of time that the districts are being given by the state to open in a 100% virtual environment. And I said the state was giving us 3 weeks from the time that your school from the day your school starts. And then after that, being in that 4th week, the districts will be required to allow in-person teaching for parents that want that. there's a lot of concerns with that, and I want to address the issue of in-person learning. There's going to be a point in time that we're going to be making decisions as to when we bring children back, and we begin phasing them in based on our most needy, our most vulnerable, our special ed student population, our youngest learners, our pre-K and kinder and first graders. We all need face-to-face instruction. We all need it. It's when teachers are at their best. It's when kids are learning at their best. And I think everyone's realizing that now. But there are some, as we look at this strategic way of handling the bringing students in at whatever time we bring them in, that there will be a phasing in of that. So the first message I want to clarify is that, yes, ALEF is starting 100% virtual. I expect in the very, very near future that 3-week transition period is going to be extended pretty significantly. In other words, that runway of time that a district has to stay 100% virtual and evaluate the health and safety conditions of their communities are going to be extended. And as Ms. Williams mentioned, and I've mentioned this several times over the last 2 or 3 weeks, there are several zip codes in the ALEF area in which the transmission rate and the positivity rate of COVID testing in some cases is up around 35%. That every health official I talk to, every health official that we work with every day said that is unacceptable, it is unsustainable. And I will just tell you, they are telling us there is absolutely no scientific data to support bringing students and staff back into a school. So when we talk about not making decisions in a vacuum, these decisions are being made with local health officials and obviously our in-district staff and support staff and board members, but our local health officials are the ones that are giving us this medical the data and the medical advice or guidance. So to those parents who are concerned, because I've had parents tell me or ask me, what am I going to do with my children? The most common sense question that as a parent that we are trying to answer is, okay, what do I do with my kids? I've got to go to work. I've got a job. Or my child is missing out on academic opportunities. And I completely agree with the parent who's concerned about the academic loss of their child. I'm concerned about the academic loss of every child in our district. And that's a real thing. I am also concerned about the parent and the family who has 1 or 2 children or 3 children, and the mom and dad have to work, or the parent has to work if they're single parents. I wish I had a good answer for you, but when I measure the 2 most critical components in this in my brain, it keeps going back and forth. When I measure, what do I prioritize? Do I prioritize the health and the safety of students, staff, and families? And do I make decisions that are consistent with that prioritization? And that's what I've been doing so far. I want to be very clear. There is no question in my mind that the decisions I'm making are based first and foremost on the safety of students, staff, and their families. And I'm using data to make those decisions. I'm using as much information as I can. I watch the news like everyone else does. I'm not basing it on what I read here on the news. I'm basing it on discussions I have with our Harris County and City of Houston health officials. So for those families who are frustrated and worried about either their situation with leaving children by themselves or worried because they can't go to work, or the parent who is worried about the learning losses that their child is experiencing, I empathize and I sympathize with you. I understand. And that's why we're doing as much as we possibly can to stand up a remote virtual learning experience called ALEF Learns at Home. It is much more robust than it was in the spring. We've had time to plan. We've had time to prepare. We've had time to train. We are going to have devices for every student that needs one at home. We're going to have hotspot, reliable 4G hotspot internet connectivity for families that do not. Those you're going to begin, as a family, you're going to begin hearing from campuses and from your schools soon. We will be making arrangements for pickup of those devices and those hotspots based on the information we have. So we're going to do everything we can do to provide a quality education for your child while we're in this mode of protecting the health and the safety of everyone. I know it's not perfect. It's far from perfect. But again, going back to when you have to prioritize, I'm prioritizing the health and the safety. And it doesn't mean I'm sacrificing something because of that. We're not sacrificing education, but we are, and I'm fully aware of this. We realize that the educational attainment for some children is going to be compromised because of what's being put in front of us with the safety and health. So parents, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, I understand. On the flip side, I'm hearing from parents who are saying, Mr. Chambers, I don't care when you open school up. I am not sending my child back until this virus is done with, or we have a vaccine, or there's a lot of different examples families and parents are giving me. So I've got the parent who's telling me that, which I completely understand, they want their child in school face to face. And I've got the parent saying, I don't care what you say, I'm keeping my child at home. And I guess my message to that family member, to those families, is that I will never put you in a position where you don't have the choice as to whether you send your child to school for in-person or you choose to keep them home for continued virtual learning until there's a solution to the virus that's going on right now. Our state officials, and I want to segue from those two scenarios, from I want my child in school right now to I do not want my child in school until there's a vaccine or until this issue is solved. We have been working diligently with our statewide officials over specifically the last 4 or 5 days, but even longer than that, trying to put guidelines in place that make what I just described plausible, doable in a realistic way. So people like Ms. Williams, who's a classroom teacher, is her profession. We have all been fighting for the opportunity to not make the transition from classroom to virtual learning. We've tried not to make that any more difficult than it has to be, and it's difficult in a perfect situation. It's difficult, but we're working really closely to extend that 3-week transition I mentioned earlier. So for those families who are concerned about your child having to go back to school for in-person in week number 4, that's not going to be required. That transition period is going to be extended. And I have every confidence in the world that should we get to a certain point where that transition period is ended, if the rate of the virus spread and the rate of the positive cases continues and it maintains at the level that it is right now, or if it's even worse, there's going to be additional time for us to make decisions as to whether it's the safest thing to do to bring staff and students back into school. So as a parent, I wouldn't be worried about the opportunity for you to not have to put your child in school for in-person if that's a concern that you have. You're gonna have that choice and that option for quite a while. So those, Ms. Williams, those are those two questions, or those two issues, I guess, which are 180 degrees different from each other. That's what we're hearing. And I just want to be clear about what's driving my decisions, because, and I fully understand if people disagree with that decision or those decisions. I understand, I accept that. But in order to be clear about what's driving me when I make that decision, it's the safety and the health of students. And as I said, I did an interview. I can't remember, I've done so many of them, but I did one a week or so ago. And this is the truth. I don't want a year from now to have to look a staff member or someone in the eye and say that I made a decision a year earlier now that potentially compromised their health or their family's health or their child's health. I believe right now the risks are so high that that's what I would be doing. Now, there's going to be a point in time in the future, I don't know when, but there's going to be a point in time in the future where that risk is not nearly as high as it is right now. And when that time comes, we will all be working feverishly and aggressively to bring our students back, as I mentioned earlier, in a safe way so that they receive in-person learning as quickly as they can. I'll wrap up by saying this. We are preparing, and we're going to be providing the board a very comprehensive document, because there's a lot of questions that teachers have. And most of the questions I'm getting from teachers and parents, for the most part, most of them are about in-person teaching and learning. They're worried about that. Yeah, we're worried about virtual, but we're worried about virtual for different. So, did you lose me? Oh, you're on mute, Miss Williams.
You're good, Mr. Chambers. I think you were just getting a little passionate there, and the mic heard it.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is being recorded for everyone, so we're kind of live on this. But anyway, I'm letting teachers know there are some details that I know that you're asking about, and principals are asking about, that in the next literally 3 or 4 days, you're gonna get a very, very detailed response to that as we move forward. So,
yeah. Mr. Chambers, I wanted to just share, I fully support everything that you just mentioned, but there's a term that board and superintendents are always holding to, and that is working together as a team of 8. I think that's one of the things that needs to be very clear. This is a team of 8 effort. Even though you may not see the board members before the media all the time and things like that, I think that our board is very appreciative of the fact that we know that we may get a text message to read an email at 5 a.m. in the morning or as late as 9 or 11 o'clock at night. But it is a team of 8 effort. It is something where, like you said, that thought of thinking back a year from now and asking yourself, did you make the right decision? Did we compromise anyone along the way? That is not something in which we as trustees allow the superintendent to bear by himself. We are always consciously thinking of that, to the point of, we're conscious, the liability of sending. I mean, just as well as, and I'll just be honest, just as well as a parent may say, yes, it's okay, and I do want my child to go. Oh, to us, if we allow that, knowing better, and something happens to that child, that is something, I always say, I'm always working as a board member to this district, making sure that when I lay my head on that pillow at night, that the decision that I made is one that is well, with myself and the higher entity that I look to, as well as to the people that I have to face every day. So it really is a team of 8 effort. I'm glad that you mentioned about, while we're talking about the in-person learning, the virtual learning. I know people have great concerns about that. I always have to be conscious because I have a 30-year background in technology before I got into education. I always work to the point that I believe that everybody should be involved in technology or know something about it. But the truth is, we're still not there. We know our percentages. I think that, as you said, we are in a much better place with offering the virtual learning in the fall than what we did in a rush manner. But when I measure Alief against other districts, we stand out. We did outstanding work, even with our students who needed special services. We were able to provide it. So I'm assured that it may not be pretty, as you say, but to begin virtually, if we all come together and begin with a strong footing, it will be wonderful. And the transition for going into the classrooms, I believe that it's going to be something to look to as well. I still see Alief as innovative in its thinking. And I wanted to share with that a lot of the actions and things that we may take, people may not understand. Our board did, before the pandemic, began talking about looking at things through the lens of equity. So I want to be very, very clear on we haven't lost that. Even though we're talking about reopening schools, we haven't lost the commitment or the priorities and goals that we put in place. So some things, and equity is not about being equal. It is about actually making sure that each of those students have the access to learning that they need. And that goes whether it's virtual or whether it's face-to-face. So I really applaud everyone in the district, the leadership down to our campuses who are very conscious about that when they're having a conversation. Mr. Chambers, could you talk about our surveys? Because you know, a lot of people, a lot of districts have surveys. Can you talk about where we are on surveys and if any more are coming forward?
You bet. I want to just real quickly comment on your statement about equity. It is true that we have some students who are more equitably disadvantaged, if you will, in a virtual environment. We know that, and we're doing everything in our power to ramp up. I'm sorry.
Go.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That is a note of Mr. Chambers. Sounds a little garbled to Ms. Williams, but keep going, Mr. Chambers.
I'm sorry if it's recorded that way. I apologize.
It's okay.
All I was saying, if it's more clear, is that under the equity conversation that Ann just mentioned, we understand that there are some students that in a virtual environment is not receiving an equitable education, if you will, meaning that it's just difficult. They can't get, but that's true of every student. No student's going to get the type of education and the quality of education through a device and the internet they would be getting with a teacher in person. So we're conscious of that, and we're planning as hard as we can to address that. Survey results, just yeah, it's been interesting. Here's the bottom line on that, Ms. Williams. When you ask parents who is concerned or very concerned about putting their children in schools, it's 65. It's up in the 65 to 70%. It's a vast majority of our parents are concerned. When you ask staff, it's not as high. It's in the 55, 56% range. And that was before that survey was done before the surge in the cases that we've seen the last month or so. The information that we've been gathering from parents over the last week or so through text messages, just asking what their preference is, it's fairly consistent. It's still significantly more parents who are worried and concerned, who would rather their children learn from at home than to be put into schools for in person. But I want to be clear: there are some parents that have identified they would prefer their children to be in school, and there's a variety of reasons for that. But you know, my job is to protect all students. My job is to protect all staff, and that's what I feel like I'm doing. So for those families who would prefer in school, like I said earlier, I understand, but and we're going to try to get them back in school as fast as possible. So that's. I want to address one more thing, Ms. Williams, before we wrap this up. And I've been asked a couple times about should we consider moving our school start date to after Labor Day? And I want to speak to that real quick. And I've thought about it. You know, I've even emailed you guys about it or mentioned it in an email. But here's why I don't believe that's in our best interest. There's a couple of reasons. One, we have been preparing to start on April the 6th for quite a while. I mean, so it's not like this has snuck up on us. Starting virtually, we made the decision. The board and I made the decision a while back that we were going to start 100% virtual, and our staff's been preparing for that. We have the devices, we have the internet capabilities for families. But perhaps is important, if not more than those, is if we push the start date back to after Labor Day, that's another 30 days that our students are not having access to some type of education, albeit virtual. But even if I pushed it back to after Labor Day, we would still be starting all virtual. So if someone could say, you know what, I know for a fact you're going to be starting in person after Labor Day, then maybe we would consider that. But that's not going to be the case. We're going to have to, even districts who are starting after Labor Day are starting 100% virtual. So I'm of the opinion that I don't want our students to go another 30 days without some type of access to teachers, some type of access to instruction, some type of access to another adult, an educator. Um, and so those, for those reasons, I feel confident that, and we all feel confident. I've asked my staff this several times, and on every occasion, nope, we're ready. We're ready. We need to get to our students right now, even though it's virtually. We need to get to them and begin trying to help with the learning loss. So I just don't want to wait till after Labor Day to start teaching school again, and we're doing it in a safe way. So that's for those that have asked that question or maybe wondering. That's why, and for those who weren't even thinking about it, that's that's why. That's why. So,
Mr. Chambers, could you announce again that first day of of virtual learning again? Because I think you said April, but you meant what?
oh, thank you. I said that in a meeting the other day. It's August 6th.
Okay.
So for those of you that raised your eyebrows and say he's lost his mind, it's August 6th. My apologies. Thank you for correcting.
I just wanted to say on one of my final notes, Mr. Chambers, thank you so very much again for your leadership and your skills and ability to work with the team of 8 so that we can meet not just what we think is best as educators, but meet the true needs of what our community is asking. I know that there are tons of other questions that are coming forth. Those questions are like kind of for our board members, they are what we call in the weeds. They are going below the line of governance, rather. So I just want to say a shout out. I know people are concerned about what happens if a teacher returns and COVID occurs, or what is the bus route going to look like. I mean, I received a text message, I kid you not, at 2 a.m. in the morning, where someone was trying to tell me how we should go staggered on a bus. And I was thinking to myself, you have no idea how the bus system runs in Alief. So I appreciate it. But when the time comes, we will be able to address those, and we will have methods in which we can communicate that to the staff, so or to our community. So thank you so very much to the community for all that you're doing to support us. I always say iron sharpen iron. There's no tough questions that you cannot ask us. Ask away. I mean, it just helps us all to meet the needs of our students, those kids who can't even speak for themselves. This is what it's all about. So I look forward to more to come.
Thank you. And just to everyone, we know there are people who are concerned. So just, continue sending emails, asking questions. But for those who are worried about the in-person, we're gonna talk about that, and we're gonna have a plan, and we're gonna have answers for those questions. It's just we don't know when that's going to be, and it's most likely going to be down the road a little bit. So right now our focus is getting students ready to learn virtually, getting teachers ready to teach virtually. So with that, thank you. You'll hear from us again. Appreciate all the support, Ms. Williams and the board. It goes without saying, can't do it without you. And to the community and to parents and to staff, thank you. God bless every one of you, and I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks.
Take care.